Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. And welcome to video number 179 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. I kind of lost my place, so I'm just going to throw this in and then kind of go back in time a few minutes to start working on this model and fitting everything to the barrel. Got to make a riser for the barrel, rigged it up, got some lumber, got to do a bunch of stuff. So check it out. Instead of tying this up with mule tape, I had a small sling that was long enough with both had loop ends on it. So I just did what I would have done with that. And then I'm gonna you gotta understand, you need to be able to handle stuff without getting hurt. And if something's heavy, even if you can pick it up, you know, like I said, can versus should. Makes a lot more sense to use the equipment you've got than to try to manhandle everything and be a hero. So we can do this. Come right over here under the crane. But it's a lot easier to use the crane. Because it's real easy to get hurt. Keep something, plug this up while you're. If I don't, it'll end up with a bunch of debris. Then that debris ends up being all inside this casting. And it'll be right on the outside. It won't just go into the plastic. It might, but generally it'll be where you don't want it to be. And make sure all your things are snug. You may be able to turn them a partial turn. If this is settled well, because this is the next day, and I can easily they were pretty tight yesterday. And now I can get just a little turn. Because I've got a little bit of control, to lower this table. I'm going to go back up just a little bit. Just to take the weight off of it. want these to be opposite. And you always want your belt to be cinched down really well. If this flange is too fragile, it'd be very easy to put a post this through here in order to spread out some of the weight. But I made them pretty heavy. It's right over here on this thin spot, so we'll see. But I made it pretty rugged on purpose. But a lot of this equipment may seem like a lot. You've got to look at what you've got room for, what you've got space for. But what I just showed you, by using the combination of the lift, the platform lift, and the crane, you know, having the crane is really awesome, but I could potentially just have, you know, a strong rafter, you know, something that's going to bear weight, and use my platform lift to tie something up, and then have, when it's tied up high, and then lower it down and be able to do some of the same work. So I'm hoping I'm not too wide. I may have to try to narrow this a little bit. We'll see. You also want to be careful not to get it stuck in here because you can. Sure forms work really well when the plaster is really dry. These metal rasps. You got to be sure to clean it. I'm going to do some work like this, and we'll be back in a few minutes, see if I can get this shaved down so it'll slide in and not get stuck. Because we also don't want to get it stuck in there and then have trouble pulling it out, okay? Be back in a bit. I got it trimmed down. Take a look at this. This one worked out pretty well, because the only thing, it's got a little bit of movement, not a lot, but the only thing that's really squeezing it is the flange of the rubber silicone. And that's good. You don't want this to bounce around in here. Let me hang my phone up and hang the camera back up, and we'll talk about it. Okay, now that I've got this in the barrel, I can measure, and it'll fit down to where the top, you know, where it needs to go. We'll have to fill this pretty good. And somebody mentioned foam. The problem with foam is it's very easy to crush it. You're better off to do something that's we want to stabilize it really well, because we don't want this flopping around as we're turning it. We want it to stay right where we put it. I'll leave this on so that we can get it out afterwards, okay? But I've got a measurement. We'll run this crane up. I've got some lumber. I'm gonna make a riser in the bottom here to shorten the barrel. You know, you could lower it all the way to the bottom of the barrel. You still have to stabilize it, and the challenges with rigging it and everything, it's better to have this up near the top, because I'm going to put something for an armature or a base on it, and to fill it with plaster and do all this other stuff. If it's down in the barrel 8 inches, it's a little more complicated to do, and it's also a matter of getting it out. You know, if worse comes to worse, if something goes wrong and I can't get it out of the barrel loses. We'll just cut the barrel and take the barrel off. Shouldn't have to do that, but sometimes, depending on, if you go down below these rings where it's tight, it can have different diameters, because these aren't made to precision. And like I said, don't push your luck. You know, if it works to here, great. We'll try to have it where we want it. But if we drop it way down in, it may make things more complicated. So I'll probably make a riser out of that. We needed, I think, almost 8 inches. And if I do the 2x4s and then cross them, then we end up with 7 inches. And we can go down in just a little bit and it'll be great. So I'm gonna put some wood together and then we're done. Comes out without dragging on the barrel, without picking the barrel up off. That's what you want. All right, a little bit of magic video, whatever. I want to make this a rack to put in the bottom to stand to as a rack. Riser or spacer. And so I went ahead, got into my pile of scrap, found these pieces that were like, I think they were 26 long. Cut them down, and I want to do them like cords. I want to overlap them. Now, you can go nuts and do it down inside the barrel, but that's kind of complicated. It's a lot easier to just take the lid of the barrel, space them, get them out as far out as they can go. Because they should be, they're all the same length. You can square them up. And because they're the same length, you should all have about the same length on each end overhang. Does that make sense? I know this looks crooked, but it's pretty square. Then we'll take our offcuts, we'll just stand them up. And this makes it really easy to screw through the 2x into this. And then we'll have our supports. We'll just run some screws into each one of them. And I got a quick riser. And then we can use it really either end up. We could put a piece of plywood across the top. I'm going to see if I've got something for just a little simple plywood to put on it to help cushion it. It's not a bad idea if you've got, you know, you can take an old pair of jeans, except when I'm done with my jeans, they're wrecked. But you can take the pant legs and sew them up into like sandbags or bean bags, and you can make those to cushion with. I don't carve small stuff, so I usually don't use those. They're very handy to have a sandbag or a bean bag in your studio, depending on the type of work you do. And if you work in smaller scale and you got to keep stuff from moving around, it's a real good way of doing it. So I'm gonna go find some screws and start screwing this together. Once you screw this together, I just put one screw in each board first and make sure it fits. So if I got to move it, I can. Now it fits great. So now I'm going to go back and put another round of screws in. Just, you know, it's little things like that that will save you all kinds of time when you're working, because you'll not have to undo things, and it adds up. You know, it can make a big difference, because if you've got to do something multiple times needlessly, and I know you don't have to pre-drill the holes. I never used to, but it ends up making it go better. You get more accurate fit up, and the bigger benefit of it is that if you do everything with screws like I do, it makes it a lot more likely you can pull the screws out and reuse them. And you know, this is a can of cup full of screws that, you know, I'm picking out the really wrecked ones, the ones that are screwed. But it dries easier and they'll come out easier. And screws are expensive. That's part of the whole issue, is that they're not cheap. They used to, everything costs so much more money nowadays that it's just not worth it. So makes it a lot easier, so it's worth it. And just use a piece of scrap, make the top, and that's about 8.5 inches tall, and so it'll be really close. That's all it needs to be. See, that fits in there, and it doesn't move around. It just has just the right amount of clearance. That's what you want. Now I'll drop this down in and see how it fits. Okay, now this is down in the barrel, and it's pretty tight. It's not tight, but it's very secure. So I'm probably gonna get some. I want to see how much cardboard we've got, and I'm probably going to roll up a bunch of cardboard and make things to pack it in there with, because that's just an easy way to secure it, and it doesn't crush like foam will. Foam, by the time you put so much in there to compress it so it doesn't crush, you're exerting force on the mother, and you did a good job with it, but I don't want to break the mother. And so we'll put this in and get this secured. Should have enough room. Get this completely out of the way so we won't get it all dirty and plastered. Then I got to look at what I can do to make a base. I want to put a piece of, the only bummer about using that piece of plywood is I was kind of thinking I was going to put that in the bottom of this, so I have to find another one. But I'm sure there's more here. So I'll look around and find more, because there's lots of stuff around. All right, let's see what's next. All right, through the magic of video, I found enough bubble wrap. Now that you ship everything, we got, you know, a whole bunch of it hanging around. I'm gonna put this on, see if I can do this without a black eye, just to hold this out of the way. that out. We'll see if it lasts. All right. That seems to be pretty stable in me. Let's, I'm going to look, see what I can find for a piece of wood to put in here in this base. I still want to do that. I'm trying to figure the best way. I've also thought I'd like to have a piece of 2x as an armature for the whole thing. But I'm trying to figure out how to get it in there. I don't know that I really need it. So I'm going to look around and see what I can find for some wood here. I think that I'm going to leave the bottom open for right now. Make sure I've got a really good cast, and we'll see if we need to install some. So now all we need to do is put it up on the rack here. It's not insanely heavy, so I can still do it. Does that show? Rolling over the bumps. Bottom. That works pretty well. I may set this up to set this up and get it ready, because when I start trying to lay it down at a specific height, it works better to either do it on the crane or with that platform there. So I don't have to manually hold it while I'm turning it. But in the beginning, we want this to turn. I want the focus to be on the upper portions, but out here on the shoulders are kind of like having the wide wings. So once it starts to cream okay, we've got to be able to turn it to get the inside of everything done. And there won't be a whole lot here. I'm going to mix up 2 buckets, and I think it's going to be pretty full. That's another thing, if you have a lot of plaster, you make a lot of mess, and you don't really get down the horizontal aspect to get this to coat. I'll probably have to spoon some out and rub this on by hand. This is a whole lot easier than some of the other ways of doing it. And now, if you, I'll run you through this because I don't know how well I'll be able to show you or talk to you about it as I'm doing it. I can reach down to the top of her head, and what's going to happen is that when I first put this in, the stuff is fairly wet. It should coat the inside of that mold really well. But what you end up having problems with is you'll have bubbles accrue anywhere where there's, well, where there's draft or an overhang, because the air will trap just like the mother would trap. I hope that makes sense. And so you've got to work in a way that the air can escape. You got to think about that, because like when you do, like I did a little angel, back years ago. Those did a little 4-round cast, and I got several of them here because we had a lot of trouble with bubbles on her face. And even though I was reaching in and I was sloshing around, I was really working hard, I didn't have my whole roller set up, but I thought I was doing pretty well. And then you pull it apart and you got a big chunk of her face that isn't there, you know, or something like that. And that's the benefit of having a reusable mold, because when I was apprenticing, you know, we weren't doing these at first. And then Ryan came and showed us how to do it with cheap silicone, and it was worth doing. But when you do a waste mold and you carve it away and there's a great big void in it, it's pretty discouraging, because you've done all this work to get to that point, and then you got to that point and everything else looks great. And I'm telling you, you'll have, you know, that little praying angel and have all the rest of the body be perfect, and then like half of her face is gone, like Phantom of the Opera or something. And can you use it? Yeah, because you still end up carving, you know, using it to point the whole job. But you know, you do all this work and you have a big failure and it doesn't look good. So I'll make sure that, you know, we really turn this up and down, you know, more and less. You have to be careful not to pour so much that it tips over and falls off. But it's I've done that. It works good on the crane. It's just it can be in the way a little bit, and it doesn't go up and down as fast. So you've got good control. The platform lift runs up and down faster. But you don't have the control that you do here. So anyway, probably I'll probably end up doing it on the crane. Situated where it's just about right. Okay. Now we can have this work however we need it to work. I think with what I'm doing, see the time, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wind this video down, and we'll call this one good, and I'm going to get all the plaster out. I'm going to go get a new bag of hydrocal, just because I'm not as happy with the way this feels. I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't have the crispness that, you know, perfect hydrocal will, because that bag had already partially gone off. So I'll just mark that bag as mother, and we'll use it for stuff that isn't critical. And I'll open a brand new bag, and I'll set up 2 buckets and probably get a third ready just in case I need it. And I'll get stuff around, but we'll actually throw the plaster in here in in the next video. So hopefully I'll have these together to go up pretty quick. So my name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.